Hi, I'm Miss Becky from the Montgomery County Norristown Public Library, and today I'm going to show you how to make a basket out of an old pair of jeans. So these are the things you're going to need in addition to the old pair of jeans. Besides the jeans, you will need a sharp pair of scissors, some thread and a needle, a pencil, a ruler, and a piece of junk mail, just some kind of junk paper to make a template from, and possibly some pins if you have them. May not need those, we'll have to see. Also, if you have a thimble in your house, that might be helpful. Not necessary, but it's better for your fingers if you have one. So the first thing we're going to do is make a template. And this is going to be a little pattern for a part that we need to cut out of the jeans so that we have an actual bottom for our basket, which you'll understand better once we get into the project. So we're going to start by making a 2-inch square. And do I want 2 inches? No, we're going to do a 1-inch square. Sorry, 1-inch square. So you're going to find your 1-inch measure on your ruler, put it in the corner of whatever it is you're using as your template. You're going to make a mark, and then move it over a little bit and make another mark. And then we're going to join those marks together. Okay, now we're going to do the same thing going this way. Make a mark there, and make a mark there, and go across. I like to make templates because you only measure once. If you make a mistake, it's on the paper, it's not on your fabric, and you have it if you want to make another one of whatever you're making. So here we go. We have a little 1-inch square, and we're going to put that aside for now. And we're going to get our jeans. Now we just need the leg of the jeans. So what we're going to do is we're going to cut off the bottom of the leg. We want to have the hem, the finished bottom. That's actually going to be the top of our basket. And then we're going to cut off the jeans and sew the bottom, and that's going to be the bottom of our basket. So we want to measure 9 inches from the edge of the bottom of the jeans. Make sure that your edges are even here, because that's going to be the top. So make sure they're even, make sure it's all nice and flat. And we're going to measure up 9 inches from that edge. So right there. On your pencil or your pen, you're going to make a mark there. Then another, we'll go over, move over again, make another mark at 9 inches, and over here at the edge, we'll do it again, 9 inches. Now we're going to connect all those marks and make a line. Okay, jeans fabric denim is very thick, and it's a little hard to work with. But we're going to see what we can do with this, okay? So now you need a good sharp pair of scissors, and we're going to cut. Make sure those edges are still even, and we're going to cut straight across that mark. Okay. So we're done. You can use the rest of the jeans for another thing, or you, if you've outgrown them, they're yours and you've outgrown them, you can cut off the legs and make shorts. And then you can use the leg for another thing. So now we're going to turn this inside out, so that, and we're going to flatten it out again. Now, I'm going to put the cut edge down here. We're going to take our little template And we're going to put it in the corner. Make sure your leg is the way you want it. I kind of, on my jeans that I have here, the front part is a little bit shorter than the back part. So we have these two edges here that are a little bit beyond the seam. So I'm just trying to center it so that the same amount of fabric is on either side, so that my basket looks tidy. So, okay, so now I'm going to take my little corner, my little template, and I'm going to trace that in the corner of my pants. And if you can't see the pencil, get a dark pen, because this is all going to be on the inside, so we're not going to be able to see it. Okay, it's kind of hard to see right there. Okay, this goes here and up here. Pen. See if we can see that any better. Yeah, pen will do. Okay, so we have our corners marked, and we're just going to cut those in. And like I said, they're heavy fabric, sometimes hard to cut through, which is why you should have a sharp pair of scissors. So we're cutting that. And do it on this side. Okay. So we look like this. Cut out. So what we're going to do next is we're going to thread our needle. And we're going to sew right along that edge there. So we have our needle. And we have to thread it. So we're going to take a piece. I'm using red thread so you can see what I'm doing. You can try to match the color of the jeans with blue or white or black even thread, or whatever you have. It's going to be on the inside, so hopefully no one's even going to see it. So this is how I measure my thread. Find the end, grab the end, and then I measure the length of my arm to my nose. Can't see my arm. To my nose. And then I double it. There. So right there is where I'm going to cut it. You don't want your thread to be any longer than as long as your arm can reach, because you're just going to get a lot of tangles. So now we're going to try to thread this thing. And make sure that your end is cut cleanly. And then we're just going to try to get it through that hole as best we can. Sometimes that takes a little practice. Sometimes you need to wet your finger a little bit to make sure that all the fibers are stuck together and not all spread out and keeping your thread from going through the eye of the needle. The eye of the needle is the little hole on the end. Okay, so now we're going to knot this. We're going to bring those two ends together, and then you're going to pinch it, and then you're going to wrap it around your finger, kind of make an X where the end, the two sides of the thread are together. And now we're going to roll it off the end of your finger, and then you're going to kind of pull it, and then you have, come on, where are you? I'm all turned around here. There, you can't That's too close. Okay, there is a knot there. We're going to do this again, just so you can see. We're going to wrap it all the way around your finger so it meets the other end. So you have the two ends, the two pieces of thread overlapping. Then you're going to, my thumb doesn't want to cooperate here. Roll it off, and then pull it, pinch it with your finger and your thumb, between your finger and thumbnail, and then you've got your knot. And if you have a little bit of a tail like I do and it bothers you, you can trim it off. Not too close to the knot because you don't want to cut the knot. But there, you see, we have our knot. So now we're all ready to start. Make sure that your threads are even. Okay, so now I'm going to take this cut end right here, make sure they're together, and this is where if you want to pin it, you can pin it. If you have pins, you can just put them perpendicular to the edge, not parallel. Actually, with hand stitching it doesn't matter so much, but I like it better this way because they don't get in the way as much when you're sewing. So pin those to keep the edges from sliding away from each other. You want to keep them as even as you can. So we're going to start with our needle and thread, and we're going to come up from underneath. We always start a little way. Bring your needle up a little way away from the edge there. So what we're going to do now, okay, so you have your thread coming up, and this is the top side. So we're going to be working from the top side. And we're going to be sewing probably about 1/4 of an inch away from the edge. If it makes you feel better, you can mark. You can figure out 1/4, maybe 3/8 would be better. So 3 of those medium-sized marks up from the edge. You can mark your fabric. 1, 2, 3. Mark your fabric. 1, 2, 3. Mark your fabric. And then connect the dots. And then you'll have a stitch line. If you want to really if you want your seam to be even, you'll have a line to follow. Okay, so we came up through. Now we're going to sew a stitch backwards. So we came up here. We're going to go back toward the edge. Still don't go too close to the edge because we don't want our stitch to unravel with the fabric. So we're going to go backwards, and then we're going to bend the fabric and move the needle so that we come up just ahead of the thread. And then you're going to pull it tight, not too tight that it bunches. So you have a stitch and a space. So now this is called the back stitch, and this is the kind of stitch you use when you want something to really hold together well. So now you have your thread here. You have the end of the stitch. You're going to go backwards to where that stitch ends and go down, and then I'm going to take this pin out because it's going to get in our way very shortly. And then you're going to come up a little space away from your thread, ahead of your thread. Right there, like that. Oop, stuck on the bottom. Pull it through. So now you have 2 stitches very close to each other, and then underside it's solid. So you're basically having a solid stitch all the way across. So you're going to go down again where that last stitch ended, and then you're going to come up in front of your thread, push it through, pull it, make sure you don't catch on anything, and you're just going to keep doing this all the way across. So So we're going to go down, behind, and up ahead. Ah, I'm pulling my pencil in there. Down, behind. Oh, I'm getting off my line. My line is not that clear. Ow. And be careful. This is where the thimble might be a good idea. You put it on whatever finger. Usually this finger or this finger, whatever you use to push your needle through. It just gives you a little bit of protection against the top of the needle, because if you do a lot of sewing, then you can use that to push the needle through. Actually, it's not helping me too much right now. This part is not so bad. When we do the side part, you might need it if you have it. Down, up ahead. It's turning out to be more like ½ an inch seam because I've totally lost my line. But as long as you're evenly spaced all the way across from your edge, you'll be okay. Okay, you see how the stitches look like they're connected on the front, and then on the back they kind of go back and overlap, but you should have a solid line of stitching as you go. So back at the end of that one, in front of the thread. Okay, now it's giving me trouble. So now I don't know why that one was so hard. Okay, so we're going to do this all the way across. Sometimes your threads get uneven, you just have to kind of pull them apart. This is a good stitch to know if you ever get a hole, like if the seam on the side of your clothing comes apart. I got another loop there. This is a good sturdy hand sewing stitch to sew things back together. That pin out. So go across, down and up. You can make this project on a sewing machine too if you have one, but I'm guessing since you're watching this that you don't have one, so this is how you would do it if you're hand sewing. Why that keeps getting uneven there. So just keep going across. Try to keep your stitches the same length. Just a good practice to get into when you're hand sewing, to make sure everything is even. Just keep going across like this. Okay, so now I'm at the end. I've gone all the way across with my stitching. I ended up making the line darker so I could make sure and see it. And the other side is a nice solid stitch as well. So now we need to finish off with a knot. We need to knot off our thread. So I'm going to take one last stitch and go down to the back side. Pull it out. Now we're going to take one little stitch, all the way through. Almost pull it tight, but not quite. Leave a little loop there. You're going to take your needle, go through the loop, and pull your thread through. And you're making a knot. You're going to make another stitch. We're going to do this again. Make another stitch. Pull it almost all the way through. You just have a little loop there. Put your needle through the loop. Pull it tight. Now I always take one more stitch underneath those stitches and then cut it off. Leave a tiny little tail, not too much. just a little bit there so that your thread doesn't come through. All right, so now you've got this. So now what we're going to do at this, where we cut out, we're going to pull that so those cut edges are together. And this one got a little crookedy, but we're going to try to keep your seam right in the center. And we're going to sew that edge straight across. So I'm gonna, what happened to my needle? I'm gonna thread, I'm gonna knot my thread again. If you need more thread, measure it out like I showed you. We're gonna take the, we're gonna tie another knot, we're gonna wrap that around again. And then we're gonna make sure the two edges are together. Roll that off the end of my finger and pull it tight. So there is my other end. There's my knot. Where are you? This is crazy. Okay, there's my knot. There it is. Okay, so we're going to, and if it helps you to keep things in place, you're gonna put a pin in there. Make sure, like I said, your stitching is right in the middle. You might want to push it down to one side, or you can open it like this. I like to push it over to the side because it sort of protects the stitching. So I'm going to put a pin right there in the middle. Actually, I'm going to do from this side. I'm going to put a pin right there through the seam, making sure it's right in the middle. And the stitching is in the middle. And then I'm going to sew again the way I did before, coming up from the bottom close to the edge, but not right on the edge. I'm going to go back, do my back stitch, come out in front of the thread and push it through. Go back to the stitch before, come up in front of the thread, pull it through. And we're going to keep going across like this. When we get to that, those thick seams, we might have a little bit of a problem, but we'll see how that goes. Alright, I got a little bit of a, see, sometimes you have to separate the threads so you can pull out. Sometimes, I don't know why that happens, but it does. Sometimes you get one side longer than the other and you have to fiddle around till you get it together. Just be careful when you're coming up on this pin that you don't poke yourself, as I have done so many times. Okay, we're just going to keep going across, straight across. Okay, I'm going to take this pin out now, and now we want to catch the edge of the fabric there beyond the seam, and we're just going to keep on going. Now it's a little tougher here because you're going through 4 layers of fabric, and that's where the if you have a thimble, that would be helpful. Okay, so if you have the thimble, you can push it down. And you might want to do half the stitch at a time, except it's hard to tell where you left off. Go in the back. And you're coming up ahead of where the stitching was. If you don't have a thimble, you can use the edge of something hard to push down. Okay, and then come up. Now we're through that part, but now we have this that we have to get through. So it's a little tough going right here, but do what you can. Down behind, come up ahead. That's having trouble. So you can just sort of give it a little push with something hard if you don't have a thimble. Down through. And like right here where I'm at, I'm going to go down in. Take my needle all the way to the other side and then pull it up. Because I'm going through all those layers of fabric. Oh, coming up. Down, back. And come up ahead. Almost through that hard part there. Down in. Sometimes if you sort of twist and wiggle, you can get through there. Actually use the table. Make sure you have something on your table so that you don't scratch it. Like I have this pad here. Why is my camera falling down? Okay. Alright, so we're almost through this hard part here. Okay, coming up on the end again. And then I'm coming right up to the edge because there's a fold, so it's not going to come apart. Now I'm going to go down to the underside, pull that through to the underside. I'm going to take a stitch right here on the edge, pull it almost through, pull it tight. Another stitch, pull it almost through, put your needle through the loop, pull it tight, and then one more little stitch, and clip it off. Okay. So there we've got that. And when you turn it right side out, you're going to have a little bit of a bottom there. So we're going to do that to the other side now. We're going to try to put that seam, center that seam right there as we pull those two edges together. And again, my edge just got a little crookedy, so match them up as best you can. And I'm going to push that seam down the same direction as the other side is. So we're going to make it all go, that's to my left. So I'm just going to put a pin there to make sure it stays there. I need some more thread because I only have this much left. So I'm not going to pull as much as I did before because I don't need that much. I'm just going to do one, I think I'm just going to do one arm length this time. Thread my needle. Come on, go in there. Go in. And it's through. Match up the ends. Even here, wrap them around my finger, pull it off, pinch it and pull it till you're knot tightens. Trim that little tail off if you want, if you have a little tail. And we're good to go. So we're just going to do the same thing we just did on the other side. Start close to the edge. Keep your stitches about 1/4 inch to 3/8 inch away. And we're going back 1 stitch and then ahead 1. Back to the stitch, ahead of the thread. Keep going through here. Doing the same thing we did before. Okay, so we're across again. So we're going to take our stitch and go down to the back side. This is all back side, but back side of where we were working. And then we're going to make a little stitch there at the edge. Pull it almost through. Go through the loop. Pull it tight. Another stitch. Pull it almost tight. Go through the loop. Pull it tight. And you're knotted off. Another stitch. Just to secure everything. And trim it. Okay, now we're going to turn this right side out. And gently poke the bottom. You see you got a little square part there, and that's the bottom of your basket. And poke that out a little bit. You want to use your pencil. Just be very gentle, you don't want to poke a hole. Just poke the edges out a little bit. Okay. So there. Now you want to turn this down a little bit. Give it some extra stability. Make sure your cuff is even. There you go. You've got a basket. And you can put your sewing supplies in there if you have some. You could put some little toys in there. You could use that for, put it on your dresser top and put your hair accessories in there, or whatever you would keep in a little basket. But there you go. If you would like to decorate it further, you could get some buttons, sew some buttons across there. You could get some colored embroidery thread and do some little designs there. You could sew on some ribbon, or tie some ribbon and sew it, whatever you'd like to do. But there you go, have your basket. If you want a wider basket, you can make your little template bigger. So this was a 1-inch one, which made a about 2.5-inch bottom. So however wide you want your basket to be, you do about half the size of it in a square that you cut out of the corner. So you can make it taller too, but it probably wouldn't stand very well. And the more that you turn this down, the sturdier it's going to be. So if it's too floppy for you, just fold down a little bit more of the leg. And there you go. The other thing you could do with this, besides making a basket, you could get some ribbon or cord and sew the ends of it on the side, and then you'd have a little tote bag. You could just get a length of ribbon. I think I had something here. Oh, whatever. You can get some ribbon or cord and sew the ends here and make a handle for your basket. So this is just a basic pattern, and use your imagination and figure out other ways to use your basket. I hope you enjoyed this and enjoy your new basket.